Let's get to AI. This is speaking of Elon Musk. Attempted coups. Well, we have another attempted coup here by Elon. Although I got to tell you, on this one, I'm actually pretty on board. Not necessarily with Elon, but against Sam Altman and the evil empire of OpenAI. So let's go ahead and put this up there on the screen. It broke out yesterday. A consortium of investors led by Elon is offering $97.4 billion to buy the nonprofit that controls OpenAI. Okay. Everybody stick with us because this gets into complicated contract law and also law as it pertains to non-government NGOs, nonprofit organization, and the conversion of nonprofit to for-profit. So what has happened is, if we step back in the past, back in 2015, Elon and Sam Altman start OpenAI as a nonprofit. Now, after the success of ChatGPT, what happens? OpenAI, the nonprofit, establishes a for-profit sub-entity of the nonprofit, which does deals with Microsoft and becomes a for-profit entity that is then governed by this nonprofit institution. It led to a bunch of drama in that, coup where Sam Altman was ousted and then he was brought back in, and there were all these questions about what the hell was going on. What Elon and his group of investors are doing is saying, let us buy the nonprofit that oversees the for-profit. The reason is because Sam Altman is currently trying to turn the company from a nonprofit that owns the sub-entity into a total for-profit enterprise. I know this is extremely complicated, and it's very obvious what happened here. It started out as AI for the good of humanity, and now it's how do we juice enterprise sales at Microsoft? So that's the subtext of everything. Put your feelings about Elon and all of that aside. The point that at least he makes here is, hey, you solicited funds for the nonprofit and under false pretenses of it being an open, hence in the name, OpenAI, open source platform that was supposed to be the good for everybody, and have turned it into a big technology company that's worth hundreds of billions of dollars. So this unsolicited offer is to the board to trying to forestall that conversion into this. Now, Sam Altman has now replied in an interview. He is currently in France at the AI Summit, where J.D. Vance, Sundar Pichai, and all these other leaders, people like Narendra Modi and others, are currently in attendance, and he responded in that interview. So guys, let's go ahead and take a listen to what Sam Altman had to say.
The headlines right now, Elon Musk making a bid for OpenAI. Your response, you're turning him down for $97 billion.
I mean, look, OpenAI is not for sale. The OpenAI mission is not for sale. Elon tries all sorts of things for a long time. This is this week's episode.
You take it seriously at all? What do you think he's trying to drive at with this?
I think he's probably just trying to slow us down. He obviously is a competitor. He's working hard and has raised a lot of money for XAI, and they're trying to compete with us from a technological perspective, from getting the product into the market. And I wish he would just compete by building a better product, but I think there's been a lot of tactics, many lawsuits, all sorts of other crazy stuff. Now this, and we'll try to just put our head down and keep working.
Does it make it more difficult to move from that non-profit model to that for-profit model for OpenAI?
We're not moving to a for-profit model. We're not sure we're going to do it all, but no matter what, the nonprofit will continue to be extremely important. It will drive the mission. It will continue to exist.
Do you think Musk's approach then is from a position of insecurity about XAI?
Probably his whole life is from a position of insecurity. I feel for the guy.
You feel for him?
I do, actually. I don't think he's like a happy person. I do feel for him.
Okay. Do you worry that he has this proximity to the president and he can influence the decision-making of the US presidency and policies around this agenda on AI?
Not particularly. Maybe I should, but not particularly. I mean, I try to just wake up and think about how we're going to make our technology better.
So shots across the bow, says he's an unhappy, insecure person, but
that's probably true.
Just look at the sliminess of him. Like, oh well, it's not technically we're moving. It's like, no, dude, that's exactly what you are doing. You obviously directly violated the original spirit of the company. But this stuff matters because what we've talked about since the beginning of the Trump administration. It's arguable that this will be the legacy of the next 4 years for AI, DeepSeek. We obviously saw the impact on our stock markets here at home, but what the future of this technology and how it's governed. And this just shows you how much of it's like basically a plaything of 10 different people who get to decide the fate of this
That's right.
the entire sector of our economy.
That's exactly right. And my understanding was part of Elon putting in this bid is it then puts a valuation on the nonprofit piece, and then may make it more expensive or more difficult for them to be able to convert over. That was my like very rudimentary understanding of the business move that was going on here ultimately. And also, I mean, it's just like typical Elon kind of like trollish behavior. But you know, Sam Altman was really hardest hit in the whole DeepSeek development, because a bunch of the assumptions that he has really made about the way that AI will progress were really dealt a blow, with DeepSeek being able to, you know, come online, be at least as technically proficient as ChatGPT is, with much less funding. I mean, whatever the real funding number is, you know, we have the technical papers to see that they did innovate and they are doing things in a more efficient manner, even to the extent of like when you put in a query to ChatGPT versus when you put in a query to DeepSeek, DeepSeek uses a massively lower amount of energy than ChatGPT does. So they genuinely innovated there. And Sam was betting on two things. Number one, that after an initial foray into making this all open source, they flipped and decided that the future really was in, you know, closed models with partnerships from big tech giants like Microsoft. DeepSeek kind of blows some of that up, being an open source model itself. And then the other thing he bet is that the development would proceed by, you know, which company had the most billions of dollars to throw at effectively like building bigger and bigger data centers. And DeepSeek really sort of blows up both of those things. So he's in a kind of a difficult position right now and sort of grasping and all of those sorts of things. Elon senses that. Elon also, you'll recall, after Trump had Sam Altman at the White House, announced his big $500 billion Stargate, like boondoggle effectively at this point, Elon immediately chimes in to shit all over the whole thing, which was extraordinary because, I mean, normally Trump would never brook something like that. And he just took it, and he got asked about it, and he was like, well, Elon hates the guy, and, you know, I harbor my own hatreds too, or something like that. It was a very Trumpian response.
He particularly likes one of those individuals.
He said hate. He has a hatred for one of them, I think is what he said. But, I mean, in a certain sense, like, the language was very Trumpian. In another sense, it was very unusual, because Trump typically, when someone is outshining him, getting too big for their britches, overstepping, undercutting him, like, he would not tolerate that. You just ask Steve Bannon, who was out of the first administration, like that. And so there's something different here going on with Elon. I don't know if it's just the power of, like, Elon's mythology of being this great inventor genius that sort of captured Trump and that he's fallen into. I don't know if it's just like they have this very mutually beneficial relationship right now where Elon sort of serves in a sense as a bit of a heat shield for Trump and, you know, brings to bear obviously Twitter and the power of that megaphone, brings to bear his nearly limitless wealth that he can use to threaten primary challenges against anyone who would challenge the Trump agenda. You know, it could just be this like mutually beneficial relationship. I'm not really sure, but that part has been very out of character for Trump in terms of the way he normally operates with these personalities. But yeah, the real point here is that all of these people, Elon, Sam, and all the rest of the, you know, dozen people who are at the forefront of AI development here and really calling the shots, et cetera, like they want to automate your jobs out of existence. They think that, you know, the future for humanity is like transhumanism and, you know, humans plus, as Steve Bannon put it. They have all of these almost religious notions of what AI is going to do and the way that it's going to save humanity. And it makes them very dangerous people, not only because the technology is very dangerous, but also because anytime you have someone who casts themselves in that role as like the sole savior of humanity, and they really believe that, and I mean, Elon definitely believes this, but I wouldn't be surprised if Sam and some of these other guys believe that as well and have cast themselves in this hero and savior of humanity role. It starts to justify all sorts of things that are really not justifiable. And also, we didn't vote for any of these people to be our saviors and to, you know, re-engineer the social contract or automate all of our jobs out of existence or even try to do such a thing. they've appointed themselves in these roles, and it is extraordinarily dangerous, the games that they're playing.
Yeah, let's actually put, can we please put C6 up on the screen just to show that none of this is slowing down? It's a graph here from the Wall Street Journal, the tech giants doubling down on their massive AI spending. So currently, the increase in the last quarter, well, actually, there was a huge increase in the capital spend, despite all of this talk around DeepSeek. And I think the reason why is because it gets to the question about cutting edge of technology and training new models versus being able to execute things at a much cheaper way. And this gets to some bigger questions too about how the DeepSeek thing was even able to be happen. They estimate it probably cost over $1 billion to train the model before it supposedly cost $6 million. But it does still justify, at least in the minds of Meta, of Google, of Microsoft, and Amazon, of just like ungodly amounts of money that is being spent right now on AI. And the reason why is because all of them think that if you spend, like in the case of Google, we're talking about $52.5 billion in a single year that is just spent on AI development. All of them say, well, let's say you burn several hundred billion, but you create, the breakthrough, AGI. Well, the enterprise value of that is trillions. So even then, the capital expenditure, even though it's a ton of money in absolute terms, in a fraction of what the value of what it would mean to be the first to the actual breakthrough of the technology. And it's terrifying because what they all seem to be saying behind the scenes is we're much closer than anybody seems to think. Now, there's maybe an element here of some alarmism and all of that, but we can see the rapid development and the ability to use these programs for a series of white-collar tasks. Like that alone is already, that's a big step change. I mean, I use it all the time. I probably use it every single day for a variety of research tasks and others. It's just better in terms of, if I be like, compare the production value of BYD versus Tesla. It's like, it sounds stupid, but previously you have to Google BYD production value, then you have to Google Tesla, and you have to manually do it together.
Right.
If you use, I can have it in 2 seconds.
Paywalls and whatever.
Right, paywall, use archive or whatever, and just like in 2 seconds, I literally get the answer. That's just an example for something that I do. I can't even imagine if I still had some spreadsheet jockey job, like half of these guys in finance. This is probably the greatest things that's ever happened for them. They can compute and have models built in seconds that probably manually would have taken forever. So you can easily see how it's going to change right now. And so I have no idea how we'll even look in the future.
There also could be, to go back to that chart that we just put up on the screen, it's also possible that this is contributing to a massive stock market bubble because...
because of NVIDIA.
Well, not only that, but all of these companies, their valuation is really dependent on the idea that they're at the forefront of AI development and that is going to be this just like profoundly valuable development. And there's questions about that, especially after DeepSeek. There's questions about that. I was just looking it up on Financial Times, not on ChatGPT. But Alphabet, Amazon, Apple, Meta, Microsoft, NVIDIA, and Tesla, they accounted for half of the S&P 500's gains last year through October. So, the stock market lives and dies by what happens with these handful of tech giants. And there's a lot of assumptions about AI that go into those valuations that makes it quite vulnerable. The other thing that I think is worth really keeping an eye on as we watch what Elon's doing in the federal government is we know they've already unleashed AI on the Department of Education. And I think one of the goals is to use the federal workforce as kind of guinea pigs in this direction of automating a lot of jobs and automating the workforce. And, maybe you don't have a lot of personal sympathy for quote unquote federal government bureaucrats, although I would say that you should because many of them do very important jobs and forego higher salaries that they could be getting in the private sector in order to perform those valuable functions. But even if you don't feel that way.
I assume, are good people.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Some, I assume.
So in any case, even if you don't share that empathy and sympathy and admiration for the civil servants working for the federal government, what they unleash there is not going to stay there. So if they are able to, use AI to automate a massive part of the federal workforce and use our public goods and public civil service infrastructure as effectively a science experiment to see how many human beings they can get rid of. You don't think that's going to have spillover effects? You don't think that that's like, a model for how they're going to roll things out across the country and how companies are going to look to that and use those learnings in order to automate their own workforces? I mean, these are real things that are on the table, and I think that's certainly part of the plan here with what Elon wants to do with the federal government as well, to try to, innovate in that job loss department.
Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.